Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. A day in which we pay tribute to one of the great men, not only in Indiana, but in all of sports. And before we start here this afternoon, let us open with a prayer, and to lead us in prayer here at the opening ceremony is without question a legend himself. And I've been here 45 years. He's the best football player I've seen in 45 years. His name is Anthony Thompson.
Before we give a prayer of thanksgiving, I just want to mention how we should be tremendously thankful for what we had in Coach Mallory. And first of all, I want to thank the kids, Mike, Doug, Kurt, Barbara, for allowing us for allowing your father to be in our lives, allowing him to shape and mold us as well. And we really appreciate that. And I want to thank Mrs. Mallory. The sacrifices you made as a coach's wife, as a mother, as a mentor, has been tremendous. And I'm sure you saved a lot of us from receiving coach's wrath from year to year for some of us. But I just appreciate you and thank you. And today we give thanks and we celebrate this great life of Coach Mallory's. I met Coach 32 years ago, being recruited by IU. I was recruited by Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Illinois. And every one of those head coaches took me around on a golf cart, offering me a scholarship to play at that university. But then I met the man, Coach Mallory. He looked me in my eye and said, there's an opportunity here for you to come and make a name for yourself and be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And with the firm handshake, we committed to Coach Mallory, coaching staff, in this great university of ours. And Coach Mallory taught me so much about the game of life. I can remember one time when, as a snotty-nosed freshman, afraid to speak to the media, one of the equipment managers, Marty Clark, used to sneak me out of the locker room after every game because I hated talking to the media, just hated it. And he would put me in the clothes hamper there and put all those sweaty clothes on me, and I didn't care, just get me out of here. I didn't want to talk to him. And so I was called into Coach's office, and I was scared to death. And he said, you know, Anthony, he said, I know you don't like speaking to the media, and I know that they want you to promote yourself and talk about yourself. He said, you know what? Just talk about your teammates. Lift them up. Praise them. And that gave me a whole different perspective of who Coach Mallory was. Because Coach Mallory was a man of great humility. He would always put others above himself. And he walked like that, and he spoke like that. And Coach Mallory, he spoke with passion. That's one thing that drove me to him. He spoke with passion. He was a man of great conviction, a man that cared about each and every one of us, not only us as players, but even the grounds crew. Prentice Parker, love Prentice Parker, love all the grounds crew, Kip Smith, anybody that was connected to this program, Coach Mallory really loved and cared about. And so it was great to know him, and even going into our adult life. Well, let me backtrack. Coach Mallory had to yell at me one time, and that was it. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was a freshman, and I got hurt in training camp and had a deep thigh bruise. And I was missing treatment. I was going back home to Terre Haute. Then we came back. We had a meeting. We had a team meeting, and I always sat in the back. And Coach Mallory's, he's going off on something. He's beat red in the face, and he's foaming at the mouth. And all of a sudden he said, and you, Anthony Thompson. He pointed and saying, you, Anthony Thompson. I couldn't hear anything they said because I was scared to death. And so he called me in his office, and he talked about, how important treatment was and not missing treatment and things like that. And that was the first and last time he ever had to yell at me. And as we as I gotten to know him in my adult life, Coach, he loved telling Woody Hayes' stories. And he had this one Woody Hayes story he told me about 10 times at least. And every time he told that story, he would crack up like that was the first time he ever told that story. I mean, to the point where he had tears coming out of his eyes. I'm like, Coach, you told that story before. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm just speaking in my mind. I didn't say that to him, mind you. And, he was so funny and, loved his family. And every player thought that Coach Mallory was their favorite. Every single player. Because he wanted to know their name. He wanted to know their spouse, their children, everything about their lives. And that's just the type of person that he was. I shared with Coach that I was going to name my daughter Sierra after him, Mallory. But I got vetoed on that because my wife, Lori, of 25 years, we were flying over the Sierra Mountains, and she said, you know what? Let's name our first daughter Sierra. And I agreed to that, but I forgot. And when Sierra was born, I said, we're going to name her Mallory. She gave me the look of death. Said, have you lost your mind? Do you know what? And I said, yeah, okay, honey. And so Coach got a big kick out of that, And I can remember when Coach Mallory called the house one evening, probably about 10 years ago, he called the house, just checking on me. And, but I wasn't there. And Lori said, hey, Bill called. And I'm like, Bill, who's Bill? And I'm thinking about, who's Bill? She said, Bill Mallory. I said, did you call him Bill over the phone? Have you lost your mind? I thought I was going to get a call for Dawn Patrol the next day. But just that reverence and that type of respect that every one of us had for him. I remember at Assembly Hall, we had our offices at the varsity club. And I was in this cubicle, and every time Coach would come in and you hear his voice, you would sit up straight. And I was 45 years old, and I'm still sitting up straight. Haven't seen the man, but just listening to his voice, how he commanded that type of respect. And so we celebrate him. We celebrate his goodness, his kindness, his caring attitude towards each and every one of us, and how he made us, we came as boys, but he made us men. So let me offer up this prayer of thanksgiving, if you will. Kind Father, again, we just thank you, Lord, for the life of Coach Mallory. We thank you, Lord, for him showing us how to be humble, how to walk upright in the face of adversity. And Lord, we thank you, Lord, for how he cared for each and every one of us, Lord. It didn't matter who it was. He loved them with the undying love and the passion for any university, another university that he showed, oh God. Father, we thank you, Lord, for his family. Watch over his family, oh God. Begin to comfort him, oh God, in their time of need, Lord. And we pray, oh God, that you would be with each and every one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Well, as the MC of the program today, I've already lost control. Anthony was supposed to be last in the program. He talked me into letting him be first with the prayer, and then he did a eulogy. For heaven's sakes, AT. I understand, though. Again, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Memorial Stadium, a location that I think we can all agree is quite fitting to celebrate the life of Bill Mallory, the winningest football coach in the history of Indiana University. I do have to make one other admission today. I was at the service this morning. At 71 years of age, I did not realize that I was the biggest crybaby in the history of mankind, because it was very emotional, and it was really, really special. You guys did a great job, all of you. In Coach Mallory's 13 years as the head coach at this school, Bill led IU to 69 wins, 6 bowl games, produced 6 All-Americans, including 2 who went on to finish in the top 6 of Heisman Trophy balloting. He was the first Big Ten coach to win back-to-back Coach of the Year honors, as important to this fan base as anything else. He led the Hoosiers to victory over Purdue, 7 times in those 13 seasons. Now, for those who might want a little perspective in how significant these achievements by Bill and his coaches at Indiana were, think about this. In the 36 seasons prior to Bill Mallory coming to Indiana, they had 5 winning seasons. 5. Since Bill Mallory was let go in 1996, Indiana football has had 1 winning season. I think that tells you all you need to know about Bill Mallory. And maybe it tells you a little bit more, but I think you're going to see changes made here at Indiana really soon under a brand new coach who his players and staff are here today, Tom Allen. And a special welcome as well to Kurt's team, Indiana State players. Thank you so much, guys, for being here today. But long before Coach Mallory came to Indiana, he had already built a dynamic resume, helping mold winners as an assistant coach at Bowling Green, at Yale, and at Ohio State, and then as the head man at Miami of Ohio, where he racked up 5 winning seasons, including the undefeated 11-0 team in 1973. He then moved on to Colorado for 5 years, racking up 39 more wins and a Big 8 Conference co-championship. He followed that with 4 years at Northern Illinois, where his 83 team went 10-2 and won the Huskies' first ever Mid-American Conference title. Bill has been inducted into the Indiana Athletics Hall of Fame, the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, the Miami University Hall of Fame, the Northern Illinois University Athletics Hall of Fame, the Phi Kappa Tau Hall of Fame, the Mid-America Conference Hall of Fame, and the Miami University's Cradle of Coaches Association. And what I've listed here are just some of the highlights from one incredible life. But for the real legacy of Bill Mallory, it's not winning and losing, nor the many honors that he had bestowed upon him. His true legacy is in the lives he's touched and in the way that he lived his extraordinary life. We have several guests this afternoon who will give us some insight into what I've just talked about and alluded to, the first of whom is a Mallory man from the days at Miami University, the class of 1972. Please welcome, if you would, Mike Poff.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Miss Ellie and the entire Mallory family for letting me represent Miami men in this tribute to Coach Mallory. Today at the church, we heard a lot from the family on how great a dad and grandfather and husband he was, and he was. What we're going to talk about here, I am anyway, a little bit, is what it was like to play for the man. Good luck. Coach Mallory was a wonderful coach. He was a great guy to be around. At Miami, I was fortunate enough to be a part of the 1969 recruiting class. That was his first recruiting class of his head coaching career. Now, that taken into it, we could tell stories, Mallory stories all day, and you're going to hear some with the speakers here. And I have one really quick one here. I don't know if you know Dan Underwood, this guy played for Michigan State, coached at Central, coached San Diego State. We had a golf outing, and Dan comes up to me and he goes, "Poff, I'm playing golf with you today. But you have got to tell me one Mallory story for every hole. 18 of them I got to hear." I said, "Dan, come on, only 18? We can do better than that." But Coach got his job in 1969 at Miami of Ohio, his first head job, and we were part of that first cycle, the 4-year cycle of Coach Mallory. We truly believe that Coach tried out a lot of things on us. He was his first head job. He wanted to try things out, and I think that a lot of times we were the guinea pigs. I can imagine what the staff meetings were like sometimes. I can just see Coach Cordini and Coach Crum and Floyd and these guys going back and saying, Coach, we tried that drill. We almost killed them. We can't do that one. And I get to see Coach going, nope, we're doing it. That drill we're doing. Many of the ideas were new to us. And one of the things that, we could say about Coach was, we come in as freshmen and we're hotshot high school football players and we think we know everything, and we get in there and we knew nothing. I remember our first freshman football game. We're playing OU. I think it was on a Tuesday night. We go over to OU and we beat them. And we're coming back and we're all hyped up. And by gosh, we're going to have next day off. All we got to do is go in the training room and get a rub down and we're good to go. We're tough guys. We go in there the next day and Coach Mallory comes over to us and says, good job, men. Now get those green jerseys out there and get on the scout team. Holy mackerel. We didn't know what we were in for. Coach was tough at practices. His discipline, he had tremendous discipline. He didn't mix words. When he said something, you listened. And you did what he said. He put a great staff together at Miami of Ohio. They were our sounding board. I can remember I would go to Howard Wires and just cry my eyes out, and he'd say, yeah, I can't do anything for you. You got to talk to Coach on that. Well, I'm not talking to Coach on that, But he put a great staff together. He told me one time, and we got to know Miss Ellie and Coach in later years, and I'll talk about that. We got to be very close with them and their family because they wintered right by where I live and Kathy live in South Florida. But he told me one time his biggest coaching success was that he never had to fire an assistant coach. And I tell you, that speaks volumes. I coached for 10 years in the MAC. Mostly a lot of guys coached here. That you don't see that anymore. You don't see that loyalty anymore. And he never had to do that. People stayed with Coach Mallory. Very few staff members left, and that speaks volumes for him as a head coach. I could stand here and tell stories all day, but I'm going to tell you, I always say I'm not going to tell any, but I'm going to tell this one. I was a sophomore, and I was lucky enough to start at Miami of Ohio. And as a sophomore starting, you don't say a word to anybody. You're just lucky to be on the field. And I tried to do my job, and we say, we're playing Bowling Green, and we're going down there, and Coach calls a pass, flag goes out. Whitey Hewitt was the line judge. Holding, number 56. And I looked down. Cripe, that's me. Darn it, So we back up 15 yards. Pass play, boom, 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 flag. Holding, number 56. Now 30 yards. And I, as a sophomore, wouldn't say anything. I lose it. And I go over to that official, and I said some things I shouldn't have said. Boom, a third flag. Well, you can see what's going to happen here. So I get a tap on the shoulder, and my the guy behind me comes in, and I start over the sidelines, and Coach is at the hash. He's meeting me at the hash. And oh boy, this is not going to be good. So I go over there. He puts his arm around me and starts walking me to the sideline. And I think my plastic helmet ear hole probably melted with what I got in that ear hole. And anyway, we go on to the game, and afterwards, my dad is a great guy, and he's there, didn't know a lot about football, and he comes up to me and says, son, that Coach Mallory? I'm so happy you're playing for him. He's such a great guy. He says, you had trouble out there. He didn't yell at you. He put his arm around you and settled you right down. Are you kidding me? I was like, but, and then the next day, he calls me into his office, and that wasn't pretty either. But the point I want to make with that was he demanded good sportsmanship. He demanded that you represent your university with pride and dignity. And that's what I heard in his office the next day. Mike, you can't do that. We don't do that at Miami of Ohio. And I never did it again, I will guarantee you. And then there was the other side of Coach Mallory when you got called into the office. And many of the players here know when you get called in the office, you know what that's all about. But I went down there one time, and I got myself in a little bit of trouble. And I went down there, and I had to leave campus for a couple days, and I had my tail between my legs, and I'm thinking, Coach is really this is going to be ugly. So I go down there, I explain to him what happened, and I got to go, and expecting a lecture and stuff, and he just looked across the table at me, and he says, what can I do to help you? That was Coach Mallory. That's the man he was. Coach ended his tenure at Miami with, as was mentioned, the 1973 championship team. Many people, including myself, feel that was the best team that ever took the field at Miami of Ohio. It was a great tribute to the players and a great tribute to Coach Mallory and his staff. Did a great job with that. As the years went by, you leave campus and you sort of lose track of your players, your friends, and the coach. And I tried to keep in touch with Coach a little bit here and there, but I had my own thing going, my own coaching career and everything. We talked a little bit here and there. But then we got together and put a scholarship together at Miami for Coach Mallory. And that brought us all together. And we do it every year now. We all get together and we play golf and we have fun. And we get to this scholarship thing, and it's a good time. Coach would just enjoy that, and along with Miss Ellie and all of us, and we'd get together and do a lot of laughs, and there was always a lot of Mallory stories going on. I remember we're telling Mallory stories afterwards, having a couple adult beverages, and we're telling Mallory stories, and Coach just got this big grin on his face. And he says, now, guys, it's a little bit of a stretch now. That didn't happen. And we like in unison, that did happen, Coach. That's the way it was. So, we got together there, and then my wife, Kathy, and I live in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And Ellie and Coach Mallory wintered in Naples, so we started getting together a little bit there, and we formed a bond, and I got to see Coach as a husband and a father and a grandfather, and not so much as a coach in those years. And it was wonderful to be around him. I remember the first time we went down there, and Miss Ellie will appreciate this. First time we go down there to play golf, Coach says, come on, Mike, you and Kathy, come on down, we're going to play some golf, have some dinner. Okay. So we go down there, and we get in the cart. I'm in the cart with Coach, and Kathy's with Miss Ellie, and then we're going about the third hole. Coach just chips it up there, and he's about 3 feet from the cup. He goes over and picks that ball up. That's a gimme. Miss Ellie goes, Bill, that's not a gimme. You can't do that. He walks back to the cart, sits down. I go back to the cart and sit down. He looks at me with that grin on his face. You all know what that. He looks at me with that grin. She hates it when I do that. So that was it was a different side of Coach that we saw. And the other thing was we had with the Mallory men outing, we would do things where I charter fish down there quite a bit, and we live on the Gulf and have fish quite a bit and do some stuff. So we would give away a fishing trip. Mallory men would come down and they get to fish with Coach or play golf with Coach. And then we have big dinner and stuff. And to see Coach, we'd go out fishing. And Coach wasn't a big fisherman. You got to understand that, but he'd go. And he did quite well. But then we go have dinner afterwards. And I can remember him, and Miss Ellie, you'll remember this. Paul Molman, who's up there, and I'm not supposed to embarrass today. Paul catches this big shark. I mean big shark. And we're hooting and hollering. And, so at dinner that night, Coach Mallory is reenacting Paul Molman catching this shark. And we are laughing so hard that we're falling out of our chairs. But that was Coach Mallory. That was the other side of Coach Mallory. And it was funny, and he did a great job with that. All right, let's see here. Coach Mallory taught us many things, but not the least was honesty, hard work, dedication, and sportsmanship. And he drilled those into you. The other thing he taught us is to be on time. And every player here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm telling you, to this day, my wife, Kathy, didn't know a lot about football, really didn't know who Coach Mallory was. So we're going to the airport one time, and I said, we're leaving at 9 o'clock. 8:45, I'm in the car, it's packed, the motor's going, and I'm sitting there, and she's not there. She comes out and says, you said we were leaving at 9 o'clock. I says, you do not understand what Mallory time is. Now she understands what Mallory time is. And when you say 9 o'clock, we're ready to go at 8:45. And that was just ingrained in you, as you all know, and it will be there forever. To end this, I'm going to tell you this. Coach Mallory not only was a coach to me and to all the Miami people, and that was a special time because it was his first head job, he was also a father figure, he was also a friend, and he was a mentor. My fondest moments of Coach Mallory will be, he's sitting in the corner of my boat in a blue chair, which he always did. And we're going along, and all of a sudden I'm hearing, hey, Mike, I got another one. Is it a keeper? And I turned around, Coach, it's a keeper. And Coach, you're a keeper. We will take what you taught us, the memories of you, and the things you taught us, and how to be successful, and we will have it in our hearts for the rest of our lives. Thank you.
Our next Mallory man is from Bill's teams at the University of Colorado. a 1975 graduate who played and coached with Bill at Colorado, and then later on at Northern and here at IU. We all know him as Sluggo. His real name is Steve Stripling.
Hey guys, good afternoon. We're here to honor Coach Bill Mallory and joining the celebration of life. I'm here to talk about his years as the head football coach at the University of Colorado. And among us today, I have Buff Brother teammates that have come from New York, Texas, Oregon, and I think that alone is a testament to Coach Mallory that when you realize we played for him over 40 years ago, and we're coming to honor him today. So we're really excited about that. I think I'm in a unique position that following playing for Coach Mallory, I went into the coaching ranks. And I was really fortunate enough to join Bill's staff for 17 years as a coach. And I know how fortunate I am to do that. And I know I can never sincerely tell you how much Coach Mallory and Ellie and the Mallory family have meant to me and my family. My wife, Gail, is here today. Yesterday, my oldest son, Cody, was just telling me he remembers Coach Mallory giving him a horseback ride when he was little. So that family has been, I can never express it. So I just want to say thank you to the Mallorys. But I'm here to talk about Colorado. In the 1970s in Colorado, it was the wild, wild west. It was loose and liberal and wild and crazy. Coach Mallory and his staff came from the Midwest with Midwest values, with Coach Mallory's principles of intensity for football, passion for football, toughness, and discipline. So there was, to be honest, a clash of cultures when he and his staff arrived at Colorado. There was some attrition as people left, but those of us that stayed and those that he recruited molded and embraced the Mallory way. You talk about passion. Coach Mallory is the most passionate man. All the ex-players here have stories, whether it be on the practice field, those legendary pregame speeches that we've all been through, on the game field. Let me tell you a story. So we're at Colorado. It's game day. The Buffs, we have the football. It's fourth down on offense. We decide to go for it. Coach Mallory decides to go for it. As we line up in the formation, a fan throws a bottle, hits right behind our offensive line. The offensive line jumps off sides. We're penalized. Now we have to punt. Coach Mallory turns around. He's like looking in the stands like, who could do such a thing to the Buffs? All right? And so he's trying to watch the game, but the fans get into it. They're like, he's over here. And so Coach Mallory's turning back around, and the fans go, he's over here. So now the fans are into it. So pretty soon, Coach Mallory, he can't take it. He drops his headphones, he turns and scales the playing wall. It's about 7 feet tall behind the bench and goes into the stands. Secured, the fans erupt, they go nuts. The security shows up, they kick him out. But you want to talk about passion? How about that passion? How many head coaches have gone up into the stands after somebody? That is passion, all right? The other thing we had to learn and embrace from Coach Mallory was toughness. We were a tough physical football team. We had long, hard, grueling practices. It was a physical mentality. We soon grew to learn to what we term play pride in the black jersey, our home color jerseys. Anybody that came to Colorado knew they were in for a long physical day. But I remember one particular afternoon practice. It was a goal line scrimmage. I was on offense. We were struggling to score. Coach Mallory was in our face. Coach Mallory's like, toughness. You got to have toughness. You'll be rewarded if you're tough. Line it up again. So we line up. Ball snapped. We come off the ball. Tailback gets the ball. He goes up and over. Right in the air. Right in the air. Pap, pap. Two linebackers drill him. He helicopters. Boom. In the end zone. Touchdown. Coach Bill's running at us. That's what I'm talking about. That's what toughness will do for you. You'll be rewarded. Problem is, he's looking at us. We're looking at the tailback. He's not moving. He's out cold. But he was okay. You know why? Because he was tough. We were tough. We played for Coach Bill Mallory. All right? The other last thing I want to talk about, one of his qualities was discipline. He was the most disciplined man I was ever around. He had the ability to make decisions. There was no gray area. It was black or white. This is right or wrong. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to move forward. We're not going to look back. That's the same thing I try to do today. I don't ever look back. And I learned that from him. So this discipline was really a big part of his character. Well, I told you about how the Wild West was at Colorado. In fact, George Blue, Coach Blue was here, many of you know. The original team meeting, when they came to Colorado, they couldn't find all of us because some of the offensive linemen lived in Jeeps in the mountains, didn't even have a place to live. So that's the kind of discipline we had at Colorado. So what does Coach Mallory do? He institutes a football dorm, Brackett Hall, infamous in Colorado in those days. A football dorm for discipline, a long list of rules, one of which, the most unpopular one, was no women in the dorm. So my little buff brother Matt Miller and I one night have a double date. And so we pull up at the dorm to say hi to some of the guys. And so the girls jump out of the car and they run up into the football dorm, and Matt and I are moving slower down below, and the girls get at the top and we hear, "What are you doing in my dorm?" And Matt and I looked at each other and said, "That's Coach Mal." So what do you do in that situation? You run. We ran. We ran across Brackett Hall, and there was an irrigation ditch about this big. We're two big guys. It's this big. We jump in the irrigation ditch. We're army crawling, getting as far away from the dorm as we possibly can, getting all tore up. It doesn't matter. We're getting away. So the next day, I'm feeling pretty good. I survived. Strip. Coach Mal wants to see you. Oh, my God. The longest walk in my life. Across that same field that I ran the night before, into the stadium, into the football offices, up the stairs, down the hallway. His door's open. And I'm thinking, he's going to rip my face off. He is going to put me on Dawn Patrol for a month. But he doesn't. I go in and close the door and sit down. And he says, "Strip, you disappointed me. You had a younger player with you. You didn't make a good decision. We can't have that." I was crushed. He crushed me. But I learned that's the kind of coach I want to be. I don't want to be the coach that they're scared of me because I yell or because I'm going to discipline them. I want to be the kind of coach that they're afraid to disappoint me, just like we all were afraid to disappoint that great man. So those are three of the great qualities that he expressed at Colorado that made us a really prideful and powerful football team. He had 4 winning seasons. We went to 2 bowl games. It was not like today. There wasn't very many bowl games. We played Texas in the Bluebonnet Bowl, which was a huge bowl, being the first and only dome at that time. We played Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. So we were a pride and powerful team. And he brought all that to us. And he had all those great qualities. What I'm talking about, football intensity, passion for football, discipline, toughness. But I want to go a little bit farther and tell you about one quality that's missing in today's football. And I think Mike and Doug and Kurt and Rod and Mark, all the guys that are in the coaching profession, what's missing out there today is loyalty. And Coach Bill Mallory had the greatest loyalty of any man I've ever known. All right? I'm going to try to get through this. But he was loyal to me. He was loyal to his players. We've already heard stories. If a player needed something, that was important to Bill Mallory. Decisions were made so that the player's welfare was considered. All right? As a coach, I know that my family and I, he would do anything for us. His loyalty, I'll give you examples. He hired me, the first job I had was at Northern Illinois University, the first full-time coaching job. We went for a jog one day, and Coach Bill had a habit of, or a tradition of, he would meet with the offense, his staff, and then he would meet with the defense. Other head coaches don't do that. They would meet one or the other. And so I asked him, we're jogging. I said, "Why do you do that?" Because I'm loyal to my coaches. I'm sitting in those meetings making the same decisions they make. Nobody's going to tell me to ever fire a coach. And he never did. That's loyalty. You don't see that in today's world of football. That's Bill Mallory. All right, that's loyalty. 4 years later, we win a championship at Northern Illinois University. He's coming to Indiana University. I'm 29. I know there's older, more experienced, better football coaches than me that he can take to Indiana, but he doesn't. He's loyal. He asked me to go. That's Bill Mallory. That's loyalty. That's what's missing in today's football. But I know I get fired up about that, but this is a great man. So I just want to finish up by saying Coach Mallory was very special. He's special to all of us. That's why it's such a great turnout. He's affected all of our lives. I would just like to say Ellie and Barb and Mike and Doug and Kurt that we're all proud to be Mallory men. We love you. We support you. And we'll always be with you. Thank you very much.
I'd like every single coach who's coached with Bill Mallory that's here today to please stand up. Every single one of you guys. every single one that coached with Coach Mallory. Let's give them a big hand. Just phenomenal. Representing the Mallory men from Northern Illinois University, the class of 1983. Please welcome Vince Scott and Tim Terrell.
Good afternoon. I'd first like to thank Mrs. Mallory, Barb, Mike, Doug, Kurt, and the Mallory family for asking me to speak today. I'm very humbled and honored and proud to do this on behalf of my family, Northern Illinois University, the DeKalb, Illinois community, and most importantly, my teammates, coaches, and all the staff who were fortunate enough to be at Northern Illinois during Coach's 4 years, 1980 to 1983. Before I say any more, I'd just like to make a quick little announcement that I'm quite excited about. As you all know, that Coach Mao was inducted in the Northern Illinois University Hall of Fame 2 times as a player, as a coach, and then also as a coach of the team. He's also in the Miami University Hall of Fame. He's also in the Mid-American Conference Hall of Fame. So NIU head coach Rod Carey, who's here somewhere today, and I wanted to honor Coach some way. And so we approached the head football coach at Miami University. We approached both the athletic directors at NIU and at Miami. And we also approached the Mid-American Conference Commissioner about establishing a rivalry game between NIU and Miami in honor of Coach Mallory. Everybody was very excited about the idea. And it's now in motion, and we hope to have it finalized in time for the inaugural game against Miami on November 14th in DeKalb, Illinois. Go Huskies. I grew up in DeKalb, Illinois, where football was not very successful on any level. In fact, football was pretty down. However, in 1980, Northern made the best decision of their ever in their lives, and we hired a gentleman by the name of Bill Mallory, who came out from Colorado to us. And when the Mallory family arrived in town, they jumped right in and got involved, just like they did here in Bloomington. In fact, Mike and Doug, in their first year in high school, took a high school football team that was not very good and led the 1980 DeKalb high school football team to its first ever state championship game. During the summer before my freshman year, I was a little 18-year-old, 5'6", 140-pound kicker. Coach challenged the players to a softball game out on the turf, and back those days it was like it was 30 years old. It was like bristle brush, 120 degrees down in that turf, and so the game's going along real well, and most of us are taking it pretty easy because we didn't want to get hurt, but of course we're making sure that we were going to beat the coaches. Well, Coach, as you know, is pretty competitive, and he did not like that he was losing. And I don't know if I ever told the boys this story, but he gets a hit, and again we're all casual out there, and Coach turns a single. He's going to go for a double, by golly, out on that AstroTurf. And sure enough, he slides in the second, in shorts, by the way. He gets up, and we're all freaked out, and he's pumping his fist, and he's got the fire in his eye. It was so funny. And he gets this huge smile on his face. And I remember saying to myself right then, holy cow, what have I signed up for? And he's got blood dripping down his leg, didn't even look down at his leg, and we're just like, oh my God. And we just went on our way. So Mallory, it was a welcome to Mallory land, and I say that it's a place that losing's not an option, even in a friendly game of softball. Our team was never always the most talented. We didn't always have the most talented players. However, we played the Mallory way, just like all you guys did too. We were a unit, we were tough, we were disciplined, we were hard-nosed, and we played old school football. And we wanted nothing more to do than to win for Coach Mallory. First 3 years were challenging, but Coach stayed the course by being the leader that he was, demanding, disciplined, and laying the groundwork for our program and creating the family. My junior year in 1982, we were playing at Western Michigan, who was coached by Jack Harbaugh. Coach Harbaugh is here with us today. He's a great friend to Coach Mao. And Coach Mao, as y'all know, hates losing, but boy, he doesn't like losing to a friend. At halftime, we're going out into the locker room. Our butts were getting whooped by Coach Harbaugh. We went in the locker room, and Coach goes on a tirade that I can honestly tell you I'd never seen anything like it and never saw another one like it again. He's going ballistic. He's smashing the chalkboard. He's got spit flying everywhere. He's redder than our jerseys. He didn't pause to take a breath. And all of a sudden, bam, Coach is down. And the room goes silent. You could hear a pin drop. The training staff and the coaches all go running over, and the doctor, like 60 seconds or something go by, and they're all trying to wake him up, and Coach passed out, literally passed out. Suddenly, I'll never forget this view, we see these arms and legs flailing on the ground. And he's screaming at the doctors, "Get off me, get off me, get away!" And he jumps back up, and guess what? He goes right at it again. It was an incredible sight. That was his intensity and his passion and his determination to never let anything hold him back from motivating us, the players. Now it's my senior year, 1983. We had just beaten Ball State, and we had not beaten Ball State in Coach Mallory's first 3 years at Northern. And he wanted nothing more than to beat his friend, Dwight Wallace, who was the head coach, and to continue our trek to the MAC championship. Sometime during that season, leading up to the game, Coach had made a statement. When we beat Ball State, I'm going to run home back to DeKalb from Muncie. Yeah, right. On October 1st, 1983, we kicked the crap out of them. Afterwards, we go back to the buses, anxious to get home, but there is no coach. We're all a little confused, a little frustrated. You know, we all want to get home and do the things we want to do at home, and all of a sudden somebody yells, "Holy cow, look out front." And we all look out the bus window like, holy smokes. A quarter of a mile down the road, there's a man in a suit and tie running down the highway, away from the stadium and away from our bus. And we pull along, and it was hot. It was 80 degrees. We run alongside, we go up alongside of him, and of course he's just pumping that fist, just that fire in his eyes, spit flying everywhere, and he won't stop running. So he ran for probably, and I'm not kidding you, he ran for probably at least another half a mile. And of course you can imagine what we all were doing on the bus. It was awesome. We just went ballistic. Had so much fun. But he was a man who always kept his word, and by golly, he was going to run home. During that same season, 1983, we went on to beat Kansas, which was the first victory for Northern Illinois over a Big H school in NIU history, and it was NIU's. And then we also went on to win NIU's first Mid-American Conference championship. Our season culminated by us going to the first bowl game in the history of Northern Illinois, the 1983 California Bowl, and winning it. Coach was so proud of us for the hard work and the resilience that we had shown throughout that season and those 4 years. And might I add, that was the last bowl game down Fisher that Northern had gone to for 21 years. And it wasn't until 2004 then Coach Novak, who's also here with us today, took them to a bowl game in 2004. And he was a Mallory man. Coach was tenacious. He never put up with any nonsense, and he treated every single player with respect. It didn't matter if you were the star quarterback, like this guy over here, a fourth-string lineman, a walk-on, or a 5'6" freshman kicker. Freshman year, I won a spot on the team, and however, it got to my head a little bit, and towards the end of the year, as coach would say, you jacked around. And I jacked around, I did. And I was put on academic probation, which was not good. And I got that phone call just like Coach Stripling just said, Coach Mao wants to see you in his office. Oh, geez, this is going to be bad. So I walk in the office, and the door's open, and spam, the door slams, and I sit down, and he started giving me that that foam flowing, spit, lather just going everywhere, and I'm just melting, I was 140, I think it was 120 when I left that room. And he says, another saying he always would be, "Gosh darn, Vince." And he just starts ripping me, and I drop my head because I was so disappointed and ashamed of myself. That wasn't a good idea. Coach says, "Vince, look at me. Look at me in the eyes." So that was a lesson that I learned, that you always looked at Coach Mal in the eyes, no matter what the situation was. And I'm proud to say that I locked my jaw, and I definitely turned it around, and I needed that whooping. Flash forward, December 1983, my last week as a player under Coach Mal. We had won a conference championship. We were going to the bowl game. We knew that schools were calling NIU, trying to get Coach Mal to become their head coach. It was an exciting time for our program. So here it is. I'm a 4-year starter. I think I'm pretty cool. Got a week to go in this semester. And I skipped my first class. I think it was the first one I ever missed, or at least since the class I missed since that verbal whooping freshman year. And sure enough, he caught me and a few other guys. And we couldn't believe that he was on our butts. There's only a few days left of school. He's leaving in a couple weeks. He's not going to care who I am ever again. So what's he do? He puts us on dawn patrol. 5 a.m. So we all get out of bed. It was an absolute mess. It's freezing cold outside. We had a foot of snow. It was a real big winter, 1983. We were miserable. We showed up a couple minutes before 5 o'clock. We made it on time, heck. We thought we'd have a GA or an assistant there. 5 a.m. But who's there waiting for us on the track? Mallory time, 15 minutes early. Coach Mal. Couldn't believe it. We just about rolled over. So he runs with us, pushes us, and yeah, that was a tough night. I disappointed Coach, and that was a second disappointment I think I had done to Coach, and that was tough. But that was his character, to take advantage of every teaching moment, to impart on us that we should never take our feet off the gas, to always achieve at our highest capabilities, and to stay committed. He was a leader by example, and he became a mentor to all of us, and had a profound effect on all our lives. My family and I were very fortunate to be close to Coach Mal, Mrs. Mal, and the family over the last 30 years. We actually moved here in Bloomington in 1994 because Coach had encouraged it. But also, to be honest, I wanted to be near him. I knew I'd be a better man, a better father, and a better husband for it. During those 30 years, Coach was so giving and caring, along with Mrs. Mallory. He volunteered to speak at my youth baseball teams and all my youth teams. For 23 years, he attended almost every single NIU football fundraising event. He did numerous coaching clinics. And he and Mrs. Mal showed up at the hospital one time. I was sitting there by myself, out of the blue. I don't know how in the heck they knew I was there, but my wife was having surgery, and they sat right next to me for about 3 hours. I lost both parents early in life, and Coach Mal and Mrs. Mal were right there along my side. I'll never forget that. I spoke monthly, if not more, to Coach over the years. Before I could hardly ever say a word, he'd always ask me how my family was doing. "How are you doing, Vince? How are the kids?" And he was genuinely interested. Though he's the most humble person I know, he'd always be sure to tell me about some accomplishment of his kids or his grandkids. And he'd say to me, now Vince, I'm not bragging or nothing, but, and he was so proud of the 4 kids and his 11 grandkids and his 1 grandchild. And even most of all, he adored, and I'm going to say this for the first time in my life, he adored Ellie, and it's Mrs. Mallory and me. But he never spoke about himself. Humble. There's not a day that's gone by in 30 years that I don't think of Coach Mallory in many situations, whether it's my own kids, whether it's my work, whether it's an employee that I have to work with. As a youth coach, when faced with any situation, I always say to myself, what would Coach do? And I always did what I knew he would do, because that was the right thing. I'll leave you one last thought. Coach is looking down on all of us today. And he would say, one of his favorite words, it's imperative, all of you, to pick yourselves up off the ground. He'd say, get your daubers up and lock your jaws, get back to your life, be a leader, do the right things, and take care of your family. the best way we can all honor him is to follow the great example that he set. Be good to others, stay humble, and relive the great memories that you had with him. I love you, Mrs. Mao. Love you, Coach.
Well, he just kind of, I think you stole my speech, so there's not much I need to say. My name's Tim Terrell. My life changed. My life changed in the fall of 1981, just like I think your life changed the day you met Coach Bill Mallory. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit light because everything everyone said, I have so many stories, especially as playing as a so-called quarterback. My teammates never accused me of being a quarterback, but I was. I played at Harper College. I was a junior college transfer. My first 2 years there, they converted me to a quarterback my second year. And I was getting recruited by about 12 schools, 3 as a quarterback and about 9 as a defensive back, which I found interesting because my passing percentage was roughly 85%. But I found out that later about 45% of that was the other team. And so I also led the team in tackles, which I thought was a little weird too, as a quarterback. Regardless, Coach Mallory saw something in me that I did not see. And I looked at 5 schools at the time, and the minute Coach Mallory and I met, it was I was hypnotized, and I was like, wow, I know where I'm going. And my parents said, we know where you're going too. They met him for the first time. And of course, Ellie, after meeting you, Mrs. Mal, for the first time, it was just, it was a dream come true for me. And without getting into a whole bunch of the stories, I want to tell you some of the fun things I was able to experience though. But I want to say this before, and that is, I think coaches coach and teachers teach is because when someone is able to come back to you and publicly thank you for making an impact on their lives, there's not a better feeling. I've had the experience a little bit of that, but certainly nothing to, and I've often been able to call Coach Mallory, and I think maybe every time I see him, I would tell him, I said, just thank you, Coach, for everything that you did. Like Vince said, and I'm not joking, to this day, when I make a decision, especially an important one, I would say, what would Coach Mallory do? What would he say? Would he go there? Would he do that? And I screwed up a lot, but that's what I would tell myself, and I really tried to live that way. And what I loved about him was that he didn't talk. It was all about, it's nice you're talking to me, but it was when you leave those doors, how do you live your life? How do you live your life? Not only did we get some people that go ahead and did well in sports, but in the business world, Vince Scott here, arguably the best kicker ever to come out of Northern Illinois, business-wise, has just been amazing. And talk about giving back and the things you do, Vince. I'm just so honored to be able to know you. Jeff Sanders, Vince Sessions, 2 great friends. Tommy Leonard came out with me. David, I see you there, and Dave Heidi and Dave Behrman. I love you guys. But I want to tell a story. We used to go to this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We used to do the mandatory volunteer throwing day where coaches couldn't be there, but we had. And I used to have a motorcycle, and I used to install carpet. And he wasn't real high on the motorcycle, and he definitely didn't like when I installed carpet. But my little carpet story, I got to tell you, it was really funny. So I'm going into my senior year in '83, and my buddy's dad is doing Jim McMahon's house. He's remodeling his house, and Jim McMahon is a big QB with the Bears. And I'm like, Lou, can you call him up and maybe I could sell Jim McMahon his carpet and the samples? So anyways, he sets up an appointment with Jim McMahon. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. If you've ever seen that Saturday Night Live skit where Chris Farley's interviewing Paul McCartney, he's just freaking out like, God, stupid question. I'm just so intimidated. So anyways, I grab a couple of footballs, throw them in the car, and I bring some carpet samples, and I'm going up to see Jim McMahon, and I'm so excited. I'm like, I can't believe I'm gonna meet McMahon. I'm going into my senior year at Northern as a quarterback, as a starting quarterback, and he's quarterback. And so I go in there, and there he is. His wife's pregnant, and I'm like, hey, Jim, nice to meet you. I'm gonna just go, it's nice to meet you too, Tim. And I'm like, I can't believe Jim McMahon. And I give him the carpet samples, and so I'm downstairs measuring, and I measure the job, and they pick out a gray Berber in case anyone's interested. And so they pick out the carpet, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I said, well, Jim, and he right there told me, he goes, we'll order it, and we'll have you do the job. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I shake his hand, and his wife Nancy's pregnant with their first kid. And I'm like, it's really nice to meet you. And I turn to walk, and I walk to the front door, and I'm like, oh my God, I got the footballs in the car. I forgot I want him to sign them. So I turn around real quick, and I go back, and I go, oh no, wait, Jim, before I leave, I said, would you sign my balls for me? And he starts, his wife drops to a knee, and she's like laughing her butt off, and McMahon's like, sure, Tim, you want me to sign your left one or your right one first? I go, no, I have 2 footballs in the car. I want you to sign. He goes, I know, go get them, blah, blah, blah. So I go get the ball. So Jim McMahon signs my balls. So now I go into my senior year, and we beat Kansas. We're all of a sudden, we're winning all these games. You know, we played 4 home games. We had 5 goalposts torn down. It was amazing. Coach Mal, you talk about going in the stand strip. Remember when the Bobcats were trying to get that second goalpost and Mal ran out into he got everyone off the field because we were going to get a penalty. But anyways, we go through the year. The team does well. How the hell I was player of the year, I don't know. But it was in the paper, and we're going to the California Bowl. And I get a phone call from Jim McMahon. He called my mom, got my number, and called me at school and said, hey, congratulations on this award. I'm like, oh my God, is that cool? So I'm just like, wow. I get an opportunity to go in the NFL, and I end up making it with the Atlanta Falcons. My second year, I was lucky enough to be one of our team captains. Well, I would go out for the flip of the coin for all the games. So we played the '85 Bears in Chicago. And I'm walking out on the field, and I'm just like, I can't believe I'm here. And I get out there, and it's Walter Payton, Jimbo Covert, Sean Gale, Gary Fensick, and Mike Singletary. And I'm like, what in the heck am I doing here? And I'm shaking their hands. I'm like, wow. And it's me, Gerald Riggs, and Rick Bryant. And at that point, we were still in the game. It was still tied, and then we kicked off, and it got out of control. We lost 36-0. But after the coin toss, I start running to the sidelines, and I hear this, Timmy! I turn around, and Jim McMahon, I haven't seen him in 2 years, is halfway out in the field. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? I said, I made it, man, I made it. So the whole game, he was telling all the guys, that kid was putting carpet on my house 2 years ago. Now he's the captain of our team. Tyrone Keys would tell me the story all the time. But I tell that story because, you know, I never, ever, ever would have imagined that I would be at the 50-yard line of the Chicago Bears. A fullback in the NFL, 200 pounds. I ended up going into more of a special teams guy, but I remember how and why I made it. Now, a lot of stars had to line up, and a lot of good things had to happen. But what I had was a teaching of tenacity, of enthusiasm, of character, of integrity by the greatest man in the world. I wasn't asked to speak. I told him I'm speaking here. I said, I want to talk, and I want to publicly thank you, Mrs. Mallory, and Doug and Kurt and Mike and Sarah, who I heard speak, and Barb. Awesome. You guys did an amazing job, and little Sarah. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have this man in my life, and I don't take a day or a second for granted. I live my life this way, and I really do owe it all to Mallory. Like Vince said, I really do think about that. But I want to end with this. This is kind of really neat. A friend of mine's a family practitioner. He's a doctor, and unfortunately, he's the doctor who has to tell somebody if they have a disease that's terminal or they're going to die soon. And he says, and he calls a presentation. It's called "Having God in Your Practice," or Trinity of Healing. He does it about every 2 years, and it's really interesting. He invites his patients, his doctors, his friends and family. And he says after they find out they're going to die, these people typically ask themselves 2 questions, and that is, was I loved and did I love? And I want to speak on behalf of myself and all of you, Coach Mallory up there, that you were loved. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We thought this might be a good point in today's program to present a rose among the thorns, if you will. She's a friend of the Mallory family and wife of Mallory man Matt Bamba, IU class of '92. Please welcome Kelly Bamba.
Hello. I'm sharing with you a tribute that I wrote for my husband Matt and for Ellie and the Mallory family. A tribute to Coach Mallory. A true leader of men.